You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on.
Mia, I have a question / a concern / something to confront you with.
Oh, please.
You know in your babbles,
Yeah?
I actually went and watched one
It's an
the other day.
Instababble.
Do you watch those?
I never watched them.
I've got a newsletter called Babble, and Instababble is what I do when I babble on Insta. Go
Okay,
on.
I accidentally
Did you?
pressed play,
'Cause you
where
missed
I
my sound
then
of my
watched
voice.
you sneeze 3 times in a row. I watched that one. I went, are people watching this shit?
This is the kind of content people want to watch.
And then you go, sorry, and then you sneezed
Yes.
again. And I was like,
I
is
know.
she serious?
She looked at her engagement stats and saw the sneezing's really hot
Yeah,
right now.
do you know all the comments were, bless you, bless you,
Yeah, no,
bless
I
you.
noticed that.
It was good for engagement.
But my concern is not only about your sneezing,
Yeah.
but you know when you use a beauty blender,
Yeah.
I've noticed this in meetings too, and I haven't said anything.
Oh.
I thought that the point of a beauty blender
Is to-
was that you dab.
Oh.
But when you do a beauty blender, you use it like you would use a
brush.
paintbrush. And it bothers me because I think too much product's getting on the blender, not enough on your face. I don't think it's efficient.
Do you think that's my problem?
I
So
think-
you meant
yes.
to dab
I
it
don't
like
think. I think that's the least of our problems.
Do you know, also it's meant to be moist,
It's meant to be moist,
Yes.
and the people on TikTok who show me how to do it.
but I can never find water when I need to do it. It's always I'm in a rush.
You
and
dip
there's
it in
never
your
water.
tea.
Yeah, doing your tea.
Don't joke. It has been done.
Look, we'll
I
have
knew
to
it.
ask Lee Campbell, or we'll have to ask the You Beauty
Okay.
people. But I have a feeling it's a dab, not a
Yeah,
paint
right.
situation. But it's bothering me.
I really love the way it feels on my face.
Pounce. I think that's what the beauty people call it.
Yes.
Pounce.
What? What's a pounce?
It's a cross between a press and a bounce.
Oh, I love this.
Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud, what women are actually talking about on Friday the 22nd of March with no added sneezing. I am Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens.
And on the show today, Australia, is the babysitter dead? No, not like that. Also, Jessie and I have finally watched some of the movies from the Oscars, and we're going to tell you what's worth your time. And trying a new thing, a back disaster, and the inevitable chat about colour seasons. Yes, it's best and worst. Welcome to our Fun Friday show. But first, Jessie.
In case you missed it, I'm breaking the rules. I'm throwing in a Friday in case you missed it. There are 4 things you should know this weekend before putting on a load of laundry. If you're anything like me, you can be doing a lot of laundry on the weekend, and I learnt rules.
I like laundry.
I think you might be good at it because Holly and I were just touching some of your clothes in the other room, and we were saying they're not destroyed like our clothes.
Really?
Yeah,
We were stroking them, sniffing them.
we were saying they're just not destroyed. There's a woman named Laura DeBarra, and she's a laundry expert. She's written a book about it. I'll buy it for you for Christmas, Mia. It's about how to wash your clothes properly, which means that they'll last longer, colour won't fade, they'll keep their shape. And here are 4 tips, genuinely did not know. The first is that when you put anything in your washing machine, you've got to do up the zipper.
Oh, Jesus.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Because if you don't do up your zipper, then it's
course.
open, the teeth are open, and it's catching on your cottons and it's ruining all your clothes.
Oh, and it also
Oh my
probably changes the
gosh.
shape of it a little bit because it can get a little bit pulled out of shape. Oh,
So
that's
part of that
interesting.
rule
Close the zipper.
is that all the buttons on any of your clothes need to be completely undone, because otherwise, if they're done up, then in the cycle they'll pull. You'll lose the shape from your shoulders and stuff.
So buttons undone, but zips
Zippers
done
done
up.
up.
What about if you've got metal buttons like on jeans?
Oh, good point.
Because I feel that is somewhere in the middle of those two things.
Yeah, good point.
To be safe, I'm doing them up now.
I think do them up.
Okay.
Cool wash as much as possible. A hot wash apparently fades the dye.
Yeah, I did know that one.
I didn't know that.
That's one I knew.
Number 3, fast wash. No.
What?
Horrific for clothes. It's horrific for the clothes because the temperature
I only
is
fast wash.
I know. The temperature is too hot, and apparently she talks about agitation on your fibres, right? And so when you put it in, it's like it's pulling all the fibres, and when it's fast, it's just pulling, and like your clothes have just
But sorry, when you say fast, you don't mean quick in time. You mean fast spin.
I think
Is
so.
that what you mean? Because I've got like an express cycle, a very quick wash, which is only 15 minutes, and I don't see why that would make her sad.
Does it go quicker than a normal cycle?
Well, because it goes for 15 minutes, not an hour.
But is the actual cycling quicker?
That's a different thing. That's like the speed of the spinning.
Too many questions.
Too many questions. Just don't do it.
I feel like the things you're telling me are raising more questions.
Okay. Well, number 4 is very clear.
I have follow-ups. Yeah, go on.
Are you two across where you're meant to put the laundry detergent and where you're meant to put the softener?
It depends on your machine, doesn't
Not
it?
according to Laura.
I don't use softener.
Oh.
Do you?
Radical.
Oh, no, I don't use softener.
Oh, I use softener.
Oh, I've got a friend who's obsessed with
I
softener.
don't know how.
I love some softener.
Can't deal that I don't use softener.
Oh, of course you use softener.
Softener.
What you have to do
Extra
is
things.
the detergent, some people are putting it on their far left-hand side. Don't do that. Very bad. It's something pre-wash, something. You're meant to put your detergent far right corner, the sort of last one.
And the mythical
And
softener.
then in the middle one. And apparently that really matters because it's when it's released into the
I
wash.
don't think I have those holes.
You definitely have those holes.
We all have the same holes.
We have
Leah.
the same holes.
I don't know.
Yeah. How come your clothes aren't shit? What are you doing? Oh, I think you separate things.
I buy the new ones.
Is the babysitter dead? I don't mean in a horror movie kind of a way, although more on that in a minute. I mean teenagers making a bit of extra money around the neighbourhood looking after the little kids. If you think about it, certainly in American culture, but therefore has seeped into all our culture, the teenage babysitter is an icon, used to be an icon, right? She's either tempting the dads who are looking at her in an inappropriate way in like schlocky daytime movies, or she's being terrorized by a serial killer in horror movies like in Halloween, or she's off solving mysteries in the Babysitter's Club. But apparently they are disappearing. And an essay in The Atlantic called Don't Tell America the Babysitter's Dead by Faith Hill explored why actually the neighbourhood babysitter is a thing of the past. And here are a couple of theories why that's true. One of them is that we no longer think teenagers are responsible enough to be able to look after children. And where we may once have thought that a 12-year-old could probably look after a younger child, now people generally think a 12-year-old needs a babysitter.
Oh, that's so interesting.
There used to be a kind of specific sort of age bracket that we gave to babysitters. And it's in this article, this historian of childhood explains it by saying that around 12 or 13, often if you were having a babysitter come, you'd probably put the kids to bed or very close to, and maybe even stock the fridge with a few snacks for the babysitter. And she says they recognised that she was grown up enough to be an extra eye in the home, but childlike enough to go looking for snacks. And it's true, right? That kind of particular era. Another theory is that our communities have changed. So if your babysitter was, as she very often was, and I certainly was when I was babysitting, your friend's daughter, so a kid you've been watching grow up over years, maybe the world's not like that now and you don't have those kind of close relationships with your friends' kids because you're more likely to socialise with them separately. Another thing is we're more anxious about all the things that might go wrong. So I asked in the Out Louders Facebook group about whether or not the babysitter was dead here. One person wrote, yes, I won't have someone babysit unless they can do CPR and are an adult. I wouldn't want the trauma on a child if something happened. Another person said, if I had teens, I wouldn't let them sit for other people's children because if anything went wrong, there would be no end to the fallout.
So we're all helicoptering the babysitters being the teens, as well as helicoptering the children being babysat.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then another theory is that parents just go out less, which is partly money, of course, but this is a bigger picture than recent cosy living pressures. Parents have more fun things to do at home. We're cocooning with our technology and all that kind of stuff. So the sort of stereotype that we've seen in lots of movies, which is at least once a week, mum and dad might go out. And when I was a kid, my parents went out every Friday night. They went to the pub with their friends every Friday night, and we had babysitters. And my parents were teachers, so they had like a never-ending resource.
Oh, that's clever.
Because my mum taught like sixth form kids, so like 16 to 18. We had a never-ending stream of 16 to 18-year-olds who would look after us on a Friday night. And they're saying that these days parents are less likely to have that kind of regular schedule. What do we think?
I have a few theories about what's happened. The first was actually brought up in that Jonathan Haidt article we talked about recently, which was about globalization and the effect of a 24-hour news cycle and getting every story delivered to us all the time. And apparently this started changing in, say, the 1980s, where every time something horrible happened to a kid, we heard about it.
Yep.
And so the sense of danger is a lot more imminent. And even the CPR thing, right? It's great to have someone looking after your kid who can do CPR. But our sense that that would need to happen is statistically disproportionate because we've all heard that horror story. Or we've all heard the horror story about the teen babysitter that does something wrong. The other thing that people are really, really conscious about is any sort of sexual abuse.
I haven't heard a horror story about a teenage babysitter that's
just
doing
something going wrong,
interestingly.
though. And I know that fear, especially, with little kids, is high. But the fear that your baby or that your child will choke or knock their head or have some health catastrophe, I don't think that was as present a generation or two ago because we weren't being bombarded with horror stories.
Parental anxiety was not as high as it is now, or not as widespread.
The other thing I think is happening is that it's a result of this sense that you can't look after kids unless you have a qualification. So because of the professionalisation of the child educator industry, there's a sense now that you do need to have done the courses and you do need to have all the training in order to look after kids, and that wasn't necessarily the case all those years ago. And the other is that the working mums I know, we know that if you're living in a city, then most of the time you need both parents working. When working mums aren't at work, they feel like they have to be at home. So even I'm finding the time that I get with Luna feels so, and again, that's little kids, but it feels like I almost can't go out on a Friday or a Saturday night because that's not the only time, but that's the time that I get with her.
Same with single parents.
Yeah.
If you're a single parent and you're sharing custody, you don't want to get a babysitter on the night you've got your kids.
Exactly.
Or your partner might give you a hard time, or you're trying to save money, or you'll just go out on the nights that you don't have your kids.
Yes,
Makes
very,
more
very
sense.
true.
It's interesting because in the Out Louders Facebook group, lots of people said that they did still use teenage babysitters in specific situations, right? So people say that if you think about this idyllic, the American movie stereotype of the idyllic suburban neighborhood, then it works really well because they're usually your neighbours, they live nearby. So like One Out Louder writes, teenage neighbours are the best babysitters. They're keen, they're affordable, and you can walk them safely back home across the street or next door if you've had a few drinks. And crucially, their own parents are usually home. So there's like this added safety net. So it can be, if something did go wrong, they could call and mum could be there in a minute. But I have another theory, which is also, it's about, if we think that they're very often female, teenage babysitters, it's about the idea of possibly exposing them to adults that you don't know, like fear of that. Because some people said, I'd let my 14-year-old daughter babysit for people I know, but I'd never let her babysit for strangers. And again, to that thing of us all being very panicky about stuff, again, from those movies, the dad drives the teenage girl home after the shift's finished or whatever. Now we would be like, oh, what if that something happens, and which obviously has happened in history. But should we all be afraid of that all the time? I wonder what's lost. Because I used to babysit all the time when I was a teenager, and sometimes I did stupid things, like I let kids stay up too late. I'd let them watch a horror movie. I would, do all kinds of things you weren't supposed to do. But, no harm, no foul. I don't think anything really bad happened. I'd sneak my boyfriend in. I'd raid their cupboards. But again, this is all just silly teenage stuff that, I don't know, have we just lost the tolerance for imperfection?
Yeah, I only babysat a couple of times when I was little because I just found it boring. I did it mostly for the snacks because my parents never had good snacks. So I'd go and I'd just look for snacks. But I wasn't that interested. And it didn't serve me well when I had children because I had no experience. I hadn't babysat. I had never looked after. I'd never changed a nappy. I'd never looked after anyone's child. It also depends how old your kid is, right? Because if your kid's a certain age, they can tell you. I hated having babysitters. We never had young babysitters. I would have liked that. We always had older babysitters.
Oh, I loved it. They'd let you watch things on TV.
No, but my babysitters were old and mother and grandmother types. They were not fun.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right, is that because of university, if you had the choice about getting a 13-year-old babysitter or a 23-year-old babysitter who's finishing a university degree and also needs some casual work, you're probably going to choose the 23-year-old. So this delayed adulthood where people are doing more casual work for longer also means that there are more people that are potentially able to do it. I was sitting there going, I grew up on the Babysitters Club, read it all the time. They were 13. There was one of them that was 11. 11
This is what
babysitting.
lots of people said in the Out Louders group. They said that when they were young, and I certainly did this, they looked after little babies. And now they've got babies. Yeah. They're like, I couldn't imagine letting a 14-year-old look after them. But again, this is just all this fear and panic, because personally, I'm a big believer that parents should go out. Like, I think parents have to have lives outside of their kids. It was modelled to me, I guess. So with my parents and their Friday night and the takeaway, and they'd go out and they'd be, but like, I think it's important. You've got to have a life. You can't sacrifice everything for your kids, right? And it's really expensive to go out. And so hiring a 23-year-old, she's going to get paid a lot more money than a 14-year-old. A 14-year-old will do it for a little bit of pocket money to put on the data on her phone, or to buy, well, actually probably a really expensive serum at Mecca. But, a proper professional is going to put $100, $150 on your going out bill, and you are not going to go out. We're losing a lot of things by being so, if it's true that we are being much more afraid of that, obviously with the parameters of safety. It's funny now that we think 14-year-olds couldn't possibly look after a 4-year-old. It's in the same way that we look at 20-year-olds and go, they're not adults, but they are.
But the people who are qualified childcare professionals, the people who've done their baby first aid courses and have those kinds of qualifications and have a lot of experience looking after children, they don't want to be casual babysitters. They are in demand for full-time work. They might work in daycare centres and childcare centres. And so you kind of got to take what you can get, has been my experience when I was looking for babysitters. I mean, obviously, if people live close, the advantage is that you don't have to drive them home, because that is really difficult. The point of going out is you might have had a couple of drinks, and the worst is when you get home and then you've got to go all the way back out again and drive someone home. But also, every parent tries to have a little roster of people. Yeah. The good thing about young teenagers is that they can't go anywhere. So it's not like they've got a social life. So they're more likely to be free. Whereas, you sort of got to not take what you can get. But there's a reason why I agree with you, Holly, that if we disqualify all middle-aged teenagers from babysitting, there's slim pickings.
We're all stuck at home.
Hello, Babysitters Club. Saturday afternoon? We'll get right back to you.
The weekend is almost upon us, so we are setting you up with a list of recommendations for you to enjoy. We are going to start. Holly and I are basic bitches, and we decided this week that we would watch our Oscars movies.
We share them out.
We would, and then tell each other whether they should see it. Mia, you can't sit through a movie. We can. No. I saw Anatomy of a Fall.
I need you to be precise. Tell me everything.
Yes. I don't know what happened. I think he fell off that third floor. The window's open.
The autopsy report is inconclusive. An accidental fall is going to be hard for us to defend. That's why there's an investigation for a more suspicious death, because you were the only person there. And of course, you're his wife.
Stop. I did not kill him.
That's not the point.
It won the Academy Award for
Is that
Best
the one with the dog?
Original Screenplay. Yes, it was the dog that was clapping through the awards.
Why can't I stream it?
I saw it at the movies, but it is currently on Prime Video. I think you've got to pay to watch it. Oh my goodness, it is so, so good. It is a French legal drama. So it takes place in a French courtroom, which was very interesting because completely different to a British or American. The whole system is different, the way they cross-examine people, everything. But this is the premise. So main character is Sandra. This is confusing because her real name is also Sandra, but she's a novelist. It begins with this bizarre opening scene where she is being interviewed by a journalist, but the journalist can't hear her. She's in her home because her husband is playing music really loudly upstairs, as though he kind of doesn't want the interview to happen. And then her son, who is partially blind, he's about 12, goes for a walk around the block. The journalist is left. And by the time he gets back to the home, his father has seemingly fallen from the third story of the house and is laying dead out the front. And so you wonder if the mother had anything to do with it, how he ended up like that. And then audio is released of a fight they had the day before. So a lot of it takes...
In French?
No, it's actually in English. A lot of it is in English. They speak English to each other at home, but parts are in French and subtitle. But the best scene, which Holly, you will love, is this scene of the fight that they kind of replay, which is about marriage, mental load, parenting, and time. And it's about whether when you want to do something, you're stealing time from the other person. Ooh. And it's this inversion of gender roles because she's wanting to write and he wants to write. And every time she's writing, apparently he's stealing time from her. It was one of the most perfect scenes in a film I have ever seen.
But do you mean if she wants to write, she's stealing time from him because he has to look after the child?
Yes.
Right.
Can you blame your partner for all the things you never did because they didn't, present you with the time? So just the idea of time was amazing.
Interesting.
And
is it set in like modern day, like current day?
In France, and it's happened in this sort of chalet. So Sandra Hüller, who is in Anatomy of a Fall, is also in Zone of Interest. So she's been nominated for Best Actress in 2 films this year.
We haven't got to that yet. That's this weekend.
Yes, that's this weekend. We'll watch Zone of Interest. So, oh my goodness, you must watch it. It is brilliant.
That sounds great.
You would love it.
Okay.
You would love it.
So then does it follow the court case?
It follows the court case and it's all about guilt and innocence, and it all ends up 12-year-old boy, what did he see, what didn't he see, moral dilemma.
Oh, nice.
Love it.
All right, so I watched American Fiction, which won the Best Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Monk, your books are good, but they're not popular. Editors, they want a black book.
They have a black book. I'm black, and it's my book.
You know what I mean.
Look at what they publish. Look at what they expect us to write. I just want to rub their noses in it.
I'd be standing outside in the night.
Deadbeat dads, rappers, crack. You said you wanted black stuff. That's black, right?
I see what you're doing.
It's so good. It's
I'm thinking about Pulp
again,
Fiction.
about a writer. I wonder why so many movies are about writers. I can't imagine. Is it because writers write them and they're etc. Anyway, the guy who won the Oscar, he wrote it, he directed it, he was one of the producers. He's called Cord Jefferson, right? And it's based on a book. But the premise of it is there is a writer. He is played by Jeffrey Wright. You've seen him in lots of things. When you see him, you'll be like, that guy. He is a writer and an academic, a black writer and academic, right? And his books are kind of well-respected but not very successful. And his agent keeps giving him the feedback, they want a black book. And he's like, well, I'm black and it's my book, so it is a black book. And they're like, no, they want a black book. And what he means is, and what the main character who's called Monk, his nickname is Monk, discovers, and what frustrates him enormously about culture is that everybody's saying they want a black book, but they want a very specific kind of black book. They want a black book about the ghetto and about, drug dealers and single moms and somebody gets shot and all that stuff. That's what they want. And he is tormented by this woman who's played by Issa Rae, who is at the top of the charts at the minute because she's written that kind of a book. And
it's so funny.
He's so furious about it.
It's
It's a comedy. And he's an academic and he comes from a middle-class family and the subplot is all about his family and it's really, really interesting in itself. But anyway, so in a fit of rage one day, he writes the stereotypical parody book and he sends it to his agent and he's like, see if those fuckers will publish this. And he's kind of joking. But of course,
I love it.
He gets like a $4 million movie deal and all this and he hates it and he's so tormented. And he tries to get them to unpublish it he poses that he's like not really a middle-class black academic, but he's a guy, a fugitive on the run and all this stuff. And he's talking to the publishers and he's saying, you know what, I want to change the title. I just want to call it Fuck. And he's like, that'll stop him. And then they're like, that's great. It's just so funny. It's so clever. It's so great. It says a lot, but without it being like a lecture film. There's such a good bit in it
I've never heard of this film.
He ends up
really
on
good.
a panel of literary awards and he and Issa Rae are the only 2 black writers on it. And this fake book that he's written is nominated and all the white people on the panel want to vote for it. And both him and Issa Rae's character are like, but it's shit. And they just keep saying, but it's so important we listen to African-American voices. And the 2 African-American people on the panel are like, yeah, it's so funny. It's so clever. It's short. It's brilliant.
That.
It's called American Fiction and it's real, real good.
Where can I watch that?
That's on Amazon Prime Video. It's really good. The family subplot is also great. That's that for me.
I've got something to read in between watching your movies, maybe at interval. It is a story that went viral a couple of weeks ago from New York Magazine, and it's called How I Got Scammed Out of $50,000. Now, I would normally not read this story, but quite a few people that I follow recommended it. It's subtitled, "The Day I Put $50,000 in a Shoebox and Handed It to a Stranger. I Never Thought I Was the Kind of Person to Fall for a Scam."
Wow.
It's written by a woman called Charlotte Cowles, and she is actually a financial journalist. She starts this piece about how she fell victim to this scam by writing, "When I've told people this story, most of them say the same thing. You don't seem like the type of person this would happen to. What they mean is I'm not senile or hysterical or a rube. But these stereotypes are actually false. Younger adults, Gen Z, millennials and Gen X, are 34% more likely to report losing money to fraud compared with those over 60, according to a recent report from the Federal Trade Commission in the US. Another study found that well-educated people or those with good jobs were just as vulnerable to scams as everyone else." What's amazing about this story is that it's this woman, she lives in an apartment in New York. She's a freelance writer. She's got a number of good jobs. She's actually a finance writer for New York Magazine. And she's got a young son and a husband. And her day starts with a phone call, and it's basically someone who claims to be from some official government agency saying that her bank details have been compromised. She actually starts the piece by saying, after she said the stuff about she doesn't seem like the person who would be sucked in by a scam, she says, "I'm standing outside my house with $50,000 of my savings in cash, which I have withdrawn from the bank, and they're in the shoebox. A car drives down the street. The window winds down. I can't really see who's in the back seat. I thrust it at the person and say, 'Please don't let them hurt my family.' Wow. And the car drives off. And of course, she never sees the money again. And none of this is a spoiler because she says this at the beginning. But she got that first phone call like in the morning, and that was late in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And you go...
This is a screenplay waiting to happen.
Well, it would be pretty boring because she's mostly just on the phone and on her computer. But you say, how on earth could that happen? You must be such an idiot. And then she talks about what happens through the day and how this scam works. You know, some of the things that they use are really well-proven techniques about brainwashing and, you know, like keeping someone on the phone, confusing them.
By the end of the article, were you like, I would have done the same?
Well, yes, I could see.
Yeah.
And then there are points where her husband's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine." And then she talks about the shame of the fact that she did that and how she didn't even want to write this piece because who will ever employ her again because it makes her seem like such an idiot. Oh, it was completely fascinating because you start by going never, and at the end you're like, there, but for the grace of God go I. These people are so clever.
Are we putting the link to that in the show notes?
We will put a link to all of our recommendations in the Mamamia Out Loud newsletter. If you want to sign up for that for free, it is a link to in the show notes.
Every Tuesday and Thursday, we drop new segments of Mamamia Out Loud just for Mamamia subscribers. Follow the link in the show notes to get your daily dose of Out Loud, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers.
It's time for our best and worst moments where we reflect. Sorry, I just burped. Back on the week that was. My worst, I've started back on No Filter. I took a season off. Kate Langbrook was hosting the summer season. Loved that. Loved having a break from the show. I'm back. I'm reinvigorated. My first episode drops on Monday. Sometimes I have to do 2 or 3 interviews in a week. I did 2 interviews actually in one day because when you're interviewing people, you have to just take when they're available. And also I do a lot of remote interviews, which is great because it means that I can interview people from all over the world. So I did 2 remote interviews in the same day. The first, I had to interrupt the interview after about 5 or 10 minutes because the woman was wearing jangly earrings. It was this noise and I couldn't work out what it was. And I'm like, "Are you wearing bracelets?" And she said, "No." And then I was like, "Oh, it's your earrings." And they were like banging. And then she was doing something with a pencil case. Anyway, the second interview that I did, a woman had just got home. It was in the US. She just got home from work and picked up her dog from doggy daycare. And the dog, it was this big golden retriever, and it just kept interrupting the interview First it was whining, then she gave it a bone, then it was chewing the bone really noisily. Then she's like, I'm so sorry, I'll put it in the crate. Then she put it in the crate, didn't like being in the crate.
My dog has been that dog.
Took it out of the crate. Then it got a ball and it kept bouncing the ball on the floor. Then she put it back in the crate. I reckon we had to start and stop the interview maybe 6 or 7 times.
Remember when home life did not interfere with work life back in the day, these days?
So I'm so out of practice. I'm so not match fit for doing this. But now I've reminded my producer and I have started this list. So we're like, if you've got a pet, it needs to be put away, preferably medicated. If you're wearing jewellery, please take it off. If you have anything in the desk in front of you, please remove it. Anyway, so that was my worst. My best is that I got to sing.
You did.
And I got a dress fitting this week. Tickets go on sale today for Mamamia Out Loud Live, presented by Nivea Cellular. This week we've had dress fittings, which has been my dream.
It's been so fun.
And also recording for a special little treat that we've got
People
in the
have
show.
never seen Mia in what she is going to be. I can't get over one of your costumes. It's so ridiculous. You've never looked so happy.
I went
It's so
running around
great.
the office. I was so thrilled. And then we got to actually record like in a proper way, in a proper studio, like
The
standing up.
professionals,
Like
yeah.
it was great. It was great.
Standing up. It
been
was very
It's been
good.
my best. I was like Taylor, a lot like Taylor.
My worst is that I've been having this awful back pain, which anyone with a little, like a crawling baby will know that this is not a good time to be a person with a back. But I've always had this issue, like this left disc, you slip a disc or whatever, and I did it years and years ago. And I got to the point the other week where I was like, it's going to go and I'm going to be one of those people that can't move for 2 weeks. I better go get this checked out. Anyway, I ended up having to get a whole x-ray and everything. And they do this thing where they can draw a line up your body where your spine should be, right? But they draw it up. And by the time it gets to my head, it's my ear. Like that's how out of alignment I am. And it was so interesting. I saw this chiro who said, he was like, look at your T-shirt. And he showed me the way that my T-shirt was sitting. And he said, if you look at all your photos, your T-shirt will be sitting funny because one shoulder is so much higher than the other shoulder. And he said even the waistband on what I was wearing will always be down at the front because I've got this pelvic tilt.
Is this got anything to do with breaking your leg?
It's got something to do with breaking my leg plus a pregnancy. But
Plus your pelvic tilted pelvis.
So he got me to stand on this scale where they work out how much weight's coming from each leg. And my left is taking like 4 kilos more because I've learnt to walk in a way that my right leg doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
and it's pushed my whole back out and it's just, I am in so much discomfort.
No.
And I said to him,
And you can't get away from it when it's your back.
you
can't like
you're never
rest it.
sitting right. And since I've had a baby, I've not been able to one night sleep on my side. I've got to sleep on my back because my hips are so awful. Anyway, I feel relieved that
Can they fix it? That's my question.
I think so. He thinks so. I'm glad that he sent me for this x-ray because something I've just been a bit worried about. So he's going to do a bunch of, crazy.
Did he say your
Harry
disc
things.
could fall out?
He gave me some tips to make sure it won't. But what's hard is that what would help is if I wasn't picking up 8 kilos 300
baby.
times a day. But that's not really working for me. My best, look, you heard us a few weeks ago talk about colour seasons. I got madly obsessed. You won't believe it, but I was wrong. I diagnosed some of us wrongly and this incredible...
You're pretty close.
What's a colour season?
I
Not
know.
everybody is as deep down this
all I
rabbit
think
hole as
about.
us. Yeah.
A colour season is basically everyone fits into one of the seasons and it's about your skin, hair and eye colour and what colours suit you best.
And you should
So it's
wear
like-
them and it
Yes.
includes jewellery and makeup and all the things, right?
Firm rules. It gives you rules and I love rules. I'm obsessed with rules. So we had Kim Crowley come in. She is an expert and she schooled us three. We got so deep.
I loved it.
And she told us what made us look awful.
That's all I want to talk about.
She told us what makes us look beautiful and Mia loved when she told us what made us look awful because Mia kept saying,
I
you
could
do
see
look
it.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Yes,
Look
that's
how bad you look
awful.
in that colour.
Yes, revolting.
That's
I've
so
always
clarifying.
thought you're horrible in that colour. We've got her coming up in an upcoming episode if you want to learn everything about it. It's so fun. I went shopping. Life-changing. Holly, what's your
These
worst?
two are so invigorated by their colours. Okay, my worst is that in a bid to remember things, because my memory's full of holes, I think it's menopause, I think it's life, I think it's whatever, I'm always taking notes on my phone, right?
Yeah.
I'm
In
sure
your
we all
notes
do
app?
that. Either in my notes app or in my Slack.
Yeah, that's
So
what I do.
we use this internal messaging system called Slack, and you can send yourself messages all the time. And because I'm on there a lot for work, it's a good place to put my notes. Because if I put them in my notes app,
You'll lose it.
I often don't remember to look in my notes app.
So true.
Or I don't remember what I should be searching for in my notes app.
It's the equivalent
Slack's
of
good.
writing it on your
Yeah.
hand.
The problem is because my memory's so rubbish that then I scroll through my Slack and there are just all these random words. I was looking today and it just said girls on the bus in capitals, all caps, girls on the bus.
Shouting.
And I was like, what girls on what bus? I'm like, is that something to do with some girls being mean to Matilda on the bus? Or I don't
It's a
remember
movie,
that
I
story.
think, or a TV show.
And then it's a TV show that I'm meant to be watching. And then I'd written Lawn Dyke in big letters. And I was like, is that somebody's name? But actually, I've gone down like a native lawn rabbit hole and it's about a seed called dichondra. Like I just, and then I'm 75H in big letters. I'm like, what?
75H
Somewhere? And I'm like, what?
Seat I'm meant to be sitting on at a concert.
What concert?
I still don't know what that one's
See,
about.
Holly, I think it's a Sagittarius thing because I was saying that I was going through mine and mine said in capital letters 27th. And it was clear that
27th.
something is happening on the 27th that's important to me. And then what you do is you check all your messages.
Yeah.
I was searching my phone, couldn't find it anywhere, but clearly I was like, you need to put this in a diary somewhere. But what diary and where am I going? It's a mess.
This is my worst. My life is a mess. My best, related to what we were talking about, on Tuesday, I spent the morning in a dance rehearsal. Oh my God, our lives have become so weird for this period. Like in a proper studio with like mirrors and
a proper
bars.
choreographer, not just me telling you to step touch.
Did you practice at home?
No, of course I didn't. I'd forgotten all about it. I couldn't find when I got there and she said,
Outlouders.
had you watched the video?
Holly's
I was like,
really
what video?
good.
I was like searching my notes.
You're searching your notes.
Maybe that's what I meant by 75H.
75H probably had something to do with it, if anybody knows. The thing is, though, is it wasn't like whether it was good or not, but dancing around for an hour made me so happy. I came into the office afterwards and I was like high on this happy vibe. And I just thought, well, obviously there's the exercise endorphin thing and there's the music, but it's like doing something different that you don't normally do. It was just so fun. And it made me think, I haven't done any of those dance workouts that are in the Move app.
They're my favourite ones to do.
And I was like, I should
Dance
do
cardio.
them because
Yeah.
I used to do that MK Fit dance workout and I used to love it. But I've kind of, when you just forget about
Yeah.
something. And then I was dancing around the studio like a right idiot. It's going to be very amusing.
Do you know, funny story,
just
you were
loved
the
it.
inspiration for those dance workouts on Move because do you remember when you went through that phase? I don't know if it was during COVID, but you were doing dance workouts on YouTube.
In the garage.
Yeah. So we've got actually the choreographer who we're using does the dance workouts on Move. And that was because of what you were doing
Which
back
is
in the day.
ironic that I've forgotten all about them.
Should have written it on the back of your hand.
I should.
I have a friend who's very much one step ahead of the culture, and she says that everyone's going to be doing dance classes in 5 minutes. She thinks it's the next frontier of exercise. There's all this research that has come out
'Cause
about
it's
how
fun.
it's fun. It makes you feel good, mental health, body, cardio, all of it.
But it has the thing for it to be fun, and this is why I used to love those ones I did in the garage, is it shouldn't matter whether you're good or not.
Oh, no.
Because obviously some people are better dancers than others and some are more flexible and some can point their toes and some can kick their legs high. Like if you take all that out of it, it's
Yeah.
just the moving and the music and the
Yeah.
fun. Like nothing makes you feel better.
Agree.
Outlouders, we are so excited to see you at our live show, Mamamia Out Loud Live, presented by Nivea Cellular. A reminder that general sale tickets, this is open to absolutely everyone, are on sale right now. Head to the link in the show notes to grab them before they sell out. Before we go, have you thought about your bucket list? A lot of people have a bucket list, but do you have an anti-bucket list? Yesterday on our subscriber episode, we discussed the things we've tried, which we vow never ever to do again. Here's a taste.
Skiing.
I was going to say skiing. Don't need to do it.
No, I hate snow. Snow's cold. It's wet. It makes you cold and wet.
Yep.
The people don't talk about that enough. Not everybody looks like Victoria Beckham in her Chanel ski suit.
Hike a mountain. When I last hiked a mountain, I broke my leg and I got stuck at the top of the mountain.
I would say getting rid of all my pubes.
Same.
Won't do that again.
Yeah.
Did that one time with waxing many years ago. Didn't like it. The funniest part is that at the top of all our list was the same thing. And there was some concern
That's true.
that we could not broadcast that thing. But we are. We
had
had
a meeting about
We
it.
had to have a
An
sensitivity
intervention.
read.
Yeah. Yes, I think we might have to have a warning at the beginning. Yeah.
There is a link to that episode in the show notes.
That is so funny. It's true. We all just looked at each other and went, oh, you too. Oh dear. Okay, that is all we've got time for today and this week on Mamamia Out Loud. Thank you for being with us. Hopefully right now you are holding, well, not your tickets because that would be weird, the thing that says that you're coming to see us on our first shows. Let's hope that's the case. Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. The episode was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman with audio production by Leah Porges. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and want to support us as well, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do so. There is a link in the episode description.